My parents sneered, "You'll never be as good as your brother." I stood up and said, "Then tell him to cover all the bills. I'm done sending money." My mom froze. "What money? We never got a single dollar from you." They say blood is thicker than water, but what happens when that blood is tainted by years of blatant favoritism and a betrayal so deep, it makes your stomach churn? On my mother's 65th birthday, I finally ripped off the Band-Aid, exposing a truth that shattered everything. My name is Alvin Grant, and I grew up in Beckley, West Virginia, a small town nestled in the Green Hills where everyone knew everyone else's business. But my childhood wasn't some idyllic picture. It was a long, silent struggle, constantly overshadowed by my younger brother, Chase. He was the golden child, the shining star, and I was always just Alvin. From the start, I was pushed to the sidelines, a quiet supporting character in my own family story. Chase, for years younger, had this strange charisma, lively, eloquent, a master at charming adults with a radiant smile or a perfectly timed joke. At every family gathering, all eyes were on him, while I sat there, a silent observer, longing for a kind word or a question that rarely came. My dad, Gordon Grant, a coal miner, came home daily with a face smeared with dust and hands calloused from hard labor. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was almost always to praise Chase. My mom, Monica Grant, an accountant, was always busy, but she always found time to brag about her clever son to the neighbors. I know they didn't mean to hurt me, but their favoritism built up, layer by layer, like the coal dust on my father's skin, slowly suffocating me. They'd overlook me with excuses that sounded reasonable. I was quiet, reserved, not good at small talk like Chase, who could make a room burst into laughter. My grades were decent, but Chase always brought home shiny medals from soccer or school plays. I loved reading science fiction, tinkering with an old computer Dad bought secondhand, pulling it apart to see how it worked. But to them, that was just burying my nose in machines, as if my passions were something to be fixed. Those comparisons were a smoldering wound in my heart. "You need to learn from your brother," Dad would say, no matter my report card. I felt like a shadow, a faint silhouette no one noticed or needed. I didn't resent Chase. He was my little brother, and I loved him. But each comparison pushed me further inward, building an invisible wall around my fragile heart. One Christmas, Chase sang Jingle Bells to applause. I held out a homemade LED lamp, hoping my parents would like it. Mom barely glanced. "You should spend more time playing with your brother instead of messing with these useless things." I swallowed my tears, retreated to my room, and wondered in the darkness if I would ever be good enough. Would I always be just that shadow? My childhood taught me that family love could be terribly unfair, and invisible wounds cut the deepest. I found solace in books and technology, where no one compared me to anyone. But deep down, I still longed for the day my parents would truly see me, Alvin, a person with his own worth, quiet and different though I may be. When I entered my teenage years, I hoped things would change, that I'd find my own corner of the sky. Instead, Chase's shadow only grew longer and darker. High school only deepened my invisibility. At Beckley High, I was still the quiet Alvin with few close friends. The noisy hallways, laughing groups, and school dances felt alien. I preferred the library, engrossed in electronics, or the computer lab, typing my first lines of code. I found joy in circuits and programs, but it was a solitary joy. To classmates, I was just that weird kid. To teachers, a good but unremarkable student. Chase, though, was a pop star. He played basketball, emceed events, and everyone loved him. I overheard my homeroom teacher telling Mom, "Chase is truly outstanding." Mom beamed. As for me, Alvin does fine, but he needs to be more outgoing. I sat in the corner, listening to Mom agree, and another pebble dropped into my chest. At home, the comparisons sharpened. "Look at your brother." Dad would swell with pride when Chase brought home a medal. "That kind of energy leads to success. You keep being so quiet. What will you achieve?" Mom was gentler, but her words cut deeper. "Alvin, you need to learn to connect like your brother. If you're not good with people, it'll be hard to get far." I never argued, but each word was a fresh slash to an old wound. It wasn't that I didn't try. I worked hard, maintained steady grades, and nurtured a dream of becoming an engineer. The logic of circuits, the flow of code, it was a world where I felt I had worth. I set my sights on West Virginia University's engineering program. I dreamed of creating something of my own, proving I didn't need to be like Chase to succeed. But I kept it to myself. Whenever I mentioned engineering, Mom would shake her head. What good will those machines do? You should learn to communicate. Once, I joined the science club, hoping to make them proud. We built a model rocket. On presentation day, Chase had a big basketball game. My parents went to cheer for him. I stood on stage, presenting our rocket, glancing at the empty seats where they should have been. Later, Mom just said, "I was busy watching your brother's game. Next time, let me know in advance." I nodded, knowing there wouldn't be a next time. When the acceptance letter from West Virginia University for electrical engineering arrived, it was a ray of light. Standing at the university gates, gazing at the lecture halls and labs, I told myself, this is where I belong. College was my chance to step out from Chase's shadow. My early days in Morgantown were like a parched man finding a stream. I dove into studies, relishing the labs, the circuits, the code. Every "hello world" on screen made my heart race. I didn't need applause, just the knowledge I was inching towards my dream. While I buried myself in assignments and part-time jobs to cover tuition, Chase took a completely different path. He dropped out after a year, declaring school restrictive. He plunged into freelance business, grand-sounding but vague ventures. He'd call home, spinning tales of investments, high-level connections, life-changing plans. When he visited, he'd appear like a star, crisp shirts, latest phone, stories of big contracts about to be signed. I wondered where the money came from without a steady job. Our parents, as if following a script, continued to favor him. They admired him, calling him a go-getter, a visionary. "Chase dares to take risks," Dad said, brimming with pride, as I sat clutching my glass of water. "But you, Alvin, just a regular job? What's that going to get you? Dream big, like your brother." Those words were salt on an old wound. I wanted to scream that I was working tirelessly, scrimping every dime for tuition, rent, textbooks. But I stayed silent, knowing it wouldn't change anything. What hurt most was their blind support for Chase. He frequently asked for money, for a promising tech app, for fancy dinners with business partners. My parents didn't hesitate, dipping into savings, taking out loans. "Chase needs this opportunity to rise," Mom would say. Meanwhile, I was on my own. Tuition, rent, food, books, everything depended on grueling part-time jobs, serving coffee, washing dishes, fixing dorm computers. Once, I hesitantly called Mom for a small amount for a technical book. She sighed, "Things are tight, Alvin. I just sent money to Chase. You'll have to manage." I hung up, staring at my second-hand books, telling myself to try harder. My college years were a machine, racing between studying, working, chasing dreams. I maintained high grades, earned an internship at a tech company. Excited, I shared the news. Mom only mumbled, "That's good, Alvin. Keep being independent." I stopped sharing after that. Chase, meanwhile, flaunted his life on social media. Sleek cars, upscale bars, expensive watches, captions like, "The road to success is never easy." I wondered where the money came from when our parents, who'd saved their whole lives, were struggling to support him. Mom bragged to neighbors about Chase's big project, while I was Alvin, who's in college, probably going to be an engineer. Even from afar, his shadow weighed on me. Every call home, Mom gushed about his plans while I got perfunctory questions. "How's school? Doing okay?" I answered briefly, knowing they didn't truly care. I still loved my family, but being overlooked pushed me further away. I told myself I'd prove my worth not through boasts, but through what I achieved. I would be Alvin, a person with his own value, quiet and different though I may be. After 4 grueling years, I graduated with an electrical engineering degree and a job offer from a tech company in Austin, Texas. Holding that letter, the world felt open. Austin was vibrant, a booming tech community. My job as a software engineer was exciting. My income was decent, but I lived frugally, a small apartment, simple meals, most salary dedicated to student loans. I didn't need fancy cars or expensive clothes. Stability, earned through exhausting shifts and sleepless nights, was precious. I wanted to build a solid life, hoping my parents might one day look at me with pride. Then a phone call from Mom changed everything. Dad, after years in the coal mines, had to retire early. His lungs, ravaged by coal dust, couldn't handle heavy labor. Mom, accustomed to her accounting job, switched to part-time due to age and stress. Family income plummeted. Hearing Mom's worried voice over utility bills and Dad's medication costs broke my heart. I decided to send money each month. Life in Austin wasn't cheap, but I couldn't watch them struggle. I set aside $2,500 monthly, wanting to do it discreetly. There was a problem. My parents weren't savvy with bank transfers. Mom found banking apps too complicated. I thought of Chase, still in Beckley, close to them. I called him, proposing what I thought was a convenient solution. I'd transfer money to his account, and he'd withdraw it in cash for them. It's quick and simple, I said. Chase agreed immediately, full of enthusiasm. Don't worry, big bro. I'll take care of it. I trusted him. Despite his flashy lifestyle, I still saw him as my little brother, someone who wouldn't harm our family. Every month, I diligently transferred the money, noting "for parents" in the description. I didn't check or ask Mom if she'd received it, assuming it was a given. I just wanted them to live comfortably, quietly, without anyone knowing it was me. I told myself that even if they never acknowledged my efforts, I was fulfilling my duty. In Austin, my life fell into place. My job brought joy, sipping coffee, coding by the window. But my responsibility to my parents remained. I imagined Mom using the money for Dad's medicine, fixing the roof, living comfortably. I trusted Chase. That trust, looking back, was my biggest mistake. Occasionally, Mom complained about costs. Dad's medicine is so expensive. Alvin, she'd say, worried. The roof is leaking again, $1,000 to fix. My heart tightened. I increased the amount, sometimes $2,700, sometimes $3,000. It meant cutting back even more, skipping outings. I didn't complain, thinking I was doing the right thing. I just wanted them free from worry. But while I lived frugally, Chase became increasingly extravagant. Social media showed him with a new SUV, designer watches, photos at upscale bars, confident captions, big work, big life. I wondered where the money came from, but brushed aside doubts. Maybe he'd finally succeeded. I didn't want to think ill of my brother, though a small voice warned me something wasn't right. Amidst this, Pamela entered my life like a ray of sunshine. She worked in marketing with a radiant smile and listening eyes. We started with lunch conversations, then coffee dates. Pamela wasn't just a girlfriend, she was my first true confidant. She helped me forget the grueling work, the money worries, the sadness of being compared. One evening, on a park bench, I told her about my childhood, Chase's shadow, sending money through him. Pamela listened without judgment. Then she took my hand. Alvin, you're doing a great thing. But you need to be more transparent. Let them know you're the one sending the money, so they see your heart. I smiled, brushing it off. No need. I just want things simple, discreet. Pamela shook her head, concerned. You trust Chase too much. Be careful. Not everyone is as they seem. Our dates became a healing balm. She took me to live music, taught me to dance, cooked simple dinners. When I was exhausted from a project, Pamela showed up with cookies, and we watched comedy, laughing until our sides hurt. You don't need to be like anyone else, she said, resting her head on my shoulder. You're Alvin, and that's enough. Those moments made me feel lighter, as if Chase's shadow was fading. But her advice about transparency lingered. I didn't want to believe Chase could do anything wrong, but his flashy posts, the new car, the lavish parties, they stirred a vague unease. I didn't know this feeling was leading to a painful truth, a truth that would explode at Mom's birthday, shattering my trust and turning my family upside down. My mother's 65th birthday party was my first time back in Beckley in nearly a year. I wanted to make it special. I spent weeks preparing a gift, a compact digital camera, easy to use, perfect for Mom, who'd mentioned wanting to capture family moments and her garden daisies. I went to an electronics store, testing models, weighing brands. Pamela even helped, ensuring Mom would love it. "Your mom's going to adore this," she said, her eyes sparkling, as we wrapped it in Mom's favorite green paper and wrote a card. "Happy birthday, Mom, from Alvin and Pamela." Pamela came with me, not just for the party, but to meet my family. I was more nervous than ever. This was my first girlfriend home, and I wanted them to see a different Alvin, mature, stable, with a wonderful partner. On the flight, Pamela held my hand. "Don't worry. Everything will be fine. I'm excited to meet your parents, even if they're a bit biased." I smiled, but my heart felt heavy. I'd told her about Chase's shadow, the constant comparisons. Still, I hoped this party would mend things, a chance for them to see me, truly see me. The drive from the airport took us through familiar roads, past the quiet green hills. Our old family home came into view, chipped porch, weathered roof, Mom's daisies blooming. I stepped out, breathing in the damp grass, the scent of home. Pamela smiled, pulling her suitcase, looking natural. I hugged Mom, noticing she was thinner, her hair streaked with more silver. Dad sat in his armchair, coughing, his face pale, but he managed to smile. I introduced Pamela. Mom hugged her. "Come in. Don't be shy." Pamela responded warmly, "Thank you. I've heard so much about you from Alvin." Chase appeared shortly after, stepping out of the kitchen in a sharp navy suit, white shirt, and gleaming watch. He clapped me on the shoulder, laughing loudly. "You're back, huh? Still the tech guy, never changed." I smiled back, trying not to notice Mom's glance, which passed over me briefly before settling on Chase, as if comparing us. Pamela whispered, "Your brother sure knows how to steal the spotlight." I nodded, saying nothing. The party buzzed in the living room, decorated with gold tinsel and balloons. The dining table laden with cakes, cookies, Mom's daisies. Relatives chatted, Aunt Linda, who always fawned over Chase, Uncle Frank, who loved telling stories. Pamela blended in quickly, chatting cheerfully with Aunt Linda about her marketing job in Austin. I watched her, a mix of pride and unease swirling inside. I wanted my family to see Pamela as someone who understood me, who made me feel valued. But then, like a familiar script, the conversation turned to Chase. Aunt Linda, mid-sip of tea, turned to him, her voice full of admiration. "Chase, you're such a wonderful son. Sending money to your parents every month, regular as clockwork. This family is lucky to have you." Others nodded. "Exactly. That boy knows how to take care of his family. Not like some who only live for themselves." My heart tightened. Pamela squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes saying, "Don't let it get to you." Mom, as if to pour fuel on the fire, looked at me with reproachful eyes. "Alvin, why can't you be even a fraction like Chase? You should learn from him. Chase is taking care of this whole family, you know that." Her words, sharp as a knife, cut deep into wounds I'd tried to bury for years. Pamela gripped my hand tighter, whispering, "Stay calm, Alvin. Don't let them hurt you." But I couldn't stay calm anymore. Years of holding back, years of comparisons, years of quietly sending money without recognition, it all erupted inside me like an uncontrollable fire. I stood up abruptly, the wooden chair scraping loudly, startling everyone. My voice trembled but was resolute. "If that's the case, from now on, let Chase handle all the bills. I'll stop sending money." The room fell silent, as if the air had been sucked out. My parents' eyes widened in shock. Dad, his voice frail from illness, spoke up. "What money? We've never received anything from you." Mom nodded, her tone sharp. "Alvin, don't talk nonsense. You're off working far away, never bothering about us. When have you ever sent money?" I felt the blood rush to my head, a mix of pain and anger. Pamela looked at me, worried but supportive. I took a deep breath, pulled my phone from my pocket, and opened the banking app. My fingers scrolled through the transaction history. Each line was clear as day, $2,500 every month. Sometimes $2,700, sometimes $3,000. All transferred to Chase's account with a note for parents. I held the screen up for everyone to see, my voice calm but icy. Here. For the past 2 years, every month, I've sent money to Chase to give to you. You say I don't care? Then what's this? The room went dead silent. Mom's mouth fell open, her hands trembling as if she wanted to touch the screen. Dad sat up straighter, his eyes wide. Alvin, is this true? Relatives began murmuring, their admiring glances at Chase turning to suspicion. Aunt Linda muttered, "My God, what's going on?" Uncle Frank, usually quiet, turned to Chase, his tone stern. "Chase, what's this about?" Pamela, unable to stay silent, stood up, her voice soft but clear. "Alvin has worked so hard to take care of this family. He didn't want to boast, but I think everyone needs to know the truth. He sent money every month, even though he had to live frugally in Austin, working day and night to earn it. I don't understand why there's been such a misunderstanding." She looked at me, her eyes giving me strength but also filled with concern. "You're not wrong, Alvin. They need to know the truth, no matter how painful it is." The small living room, once filled with laughter and childhood memories, now felt like a tense stage. Light from the ceiling bulb cast shadows on the stunned faces. The gold tinsel and balloons seemed out of place. Mom sat there, hands trembling, eyes glued to my phone screen. Dad, despite his frail health, sat up straight, wide-eyed. Relatives whispered, their gazes shifting between me and Chase. Mom was the first to break the silence. Her voice trembled, almost breaking. "Chase, you told me that money was from you. You said you were providing for us." She looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and shock, as if her world had crumbled. Chase bowed his head, face flushed, hands clenched. He said nothing, like a child caught doing something wrong. I stood watching, my heart pounding, not from anger, but from a deeper pain, realizing my younger brother, whom I had trusted completely, had betrayed that trust. Pamela looked at Mom, her eyes sincere yet serious. "Alvin loves this family, and he doesn't deserve to be misunderstood like this." Her words were a cool breeze, soothing the storm inside me. Dad, his voice raspy, looked at Chase. "Speak, Chase. What's the deal with that money? What did you do with what your brother sent?" His tone carried deep disappointment, as if he'd lost something precious. Chase lifted his head, eyes darting away, then stammered, I didn't mean to, Dad. I just borrowed it for a bit. I was going to pay it back later." He took a deep breath, finally unable to bear the weight of their stares. He confessed, "I kept most of the money. I only gave you and Mom a little, a few $100s a month. So you'd think I was taking care of the family. I needed the money to pay off debts, to keep up appearances. I didn't want you to be disappointed in me." The room fell silent again, a heavier silence now. Everyone was digesting his confession. All those months I'd scrimped and saved, lived frugally, worked overtime, it had all been a tool for Chase to maintain his image as the beautiful son. I looked at him, searching for a trace of the little brother who used to chase me around the backyard, who shared Mom's cookies. But before me now was a young man, face flushed with shame, eyes avoiding mine. Pamela, standing beside me, spoke gently to the room. "Alvin didn't want to make a big deal out of this. He just wanted his parents to live well, without worries. But I think from now on, things need to be clearer. Alvin deserves to be recognized, not for the money, but for his heart." She turned to me, her eyes soft. "You make me proud, Alvin. I know you didn't want to boast, but today you needed to speak up to protect yourself." Her words eased the storm, but also reminded me, if I'd listened to her advice earlier, things might not have gone this far. Chase, after a long silence, finally spoke, his voice trembling. "Alvin, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I got caught up in debt. My projects, they weren't like I said. I lost money, racked up debts, and I needed the money to keep up appearances so Mom and Dad wouldn't be disappointed." He bowed his head, voice choking. "I was wrong. I didn't think things would go this far." His confession left me both angry and pitying. Angry because he had lied, but pitying because he was my brother, and I knew he was also a victim of the expectations placed upon himself. The truth about Chase slowly came to light. The grand projects he boasted about, the SUV, the designer watch, The lavish parties, all funded by loans, debts, and worse, the money I had sent for our parents. He had used most of it to sustain his flashy lifestyle, giving our parents only a few hundred a month, just enough for them to think he was the dutiful son. I looked at him, my heart torn between pain and disappointment. But more than anything, I realized the distance between us wasn't just personality, it was honesty. Mom covered her face, sobbing. She grabbed my hand, her voice trembling. "Alvin, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you did so much. I was wrong all these years." Dad, his voice hoarse, looked at me with regret. "I was wrong, Alvin. I always thought you didn't care about the family, that Chase was the one looking out for us. I never imagined you." He trailed off, unable to find the words. I saw his eyes red, and for the first time, I felt he truly saw me, not as Chase's shadow, but as his son. The relatives murmured. Aunt Linda, who had always praised Chase, quietly set her teacup down, her eyes confused. Uncle Frank looked at me, his voice low. "Alvin, I had no idea you were quietly doing so much. I always thought." He didn't finish, but his eyes held a respect I'd never seen before. A neighbor whispered, "Turns out Alvin's the one carrying the family." Who would have thought? I looked at everyone, my heart torn between pain and relief. The truth was out, but it didn't bring the joy I had expected. I only wanted my parents to live well. Now I realized my trust had been betrayed, and my family clouded by lies and favoritism. Chase looked up, eyes full of remorse. "Alvin, I'll pay the money back. I promise I'll make it right." But I didn't know if that promise was trustworthy. All I knew was that from this moment, everything in our family had changed forever. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mom, Dad," I began, my gaze sweeping across the room. "I didn't want things to come to this. All I ever wanted was for you to live well without worries. But what just happened? It's made me rethink everything. I can't continue like before." Mom looked at me, tears still brimming, as if she wanted to say something. But I raised my hand to stop her. I needed to say everything, to set boundaries I had never dared to consider. "If you want me to keep supporting you," I said, my voice slow but resolute, "I have some conditions. First, I don't want to hear any more comparisons between me and Chase. I've lived my whole life in his shadow, and I'm tired of it. I'm Alvin, not some lesser version of Chase." I looked at Mom, then Dad, my eyes not angry, but firm. "Second, from now on, every expense needs to be transparent. I'll send money directly to you, or I'll pay the bills myself. I need to know my money is being used for its intended purpose. And third, Chase needs to contribute too. If he wants to be part of this family, he needs to take responsibility, not just make empty promises." The room fell silent. Mom nodded slowly, tears still streaming. "Alvin, I agree," she said, her voice choked. "I was wrong to compare you. I promise I won't do it again. I just wanted our family to be harmonious, but I made so many mistakes." Dad spoke up too. "I agree, Alvin. You're right. From now on, everything will be transparent. We won't let this happen again." Chase, still bowing his head, finally looked up. His face was flushed, eyes full of shame, but also a glimmer of determination. "Alvin," he said, his voice trembling. "I know I was wrong. I'm not just apologizing. I'll try to make things right. I'll contribute. I'll help Mom and Dad, and I'll live more responsibly." He looked at me, his eyes pleading for a chance. "I don't want to lose this family, and I don't want you to think badly of me forever." His words, though I wasn't entirely sure I could trust them, softened my heart. Pamela, sitting beside me, gave a faint smile and whispered, "You did well, Alvin. Setting boundaries is necessary, and I believe your family will understand." She turned to Mom, her voice gentle. "Ma'am, I know this is hard, but Alvin just wants fairness and transparency in the family. He loves you and your husband so much." Mom nodded, grasping Pamela's hand, smiling as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. What was supposed to be a joyful occasion had become a turning point. Mom, after wiping her tears, stood up and hugged me tightly. "My son, I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll never forget what you've done." Dad, unable to stand, grasped my hand, his eyes full of gratitude. I felt a small spark of warmth in my heart, not because of recognition, but because for the first time, I felt my family's love, unclouded by comparisons. The birthday party ended quietly. Relatives left one by one, whispers about Chase and the revealed truth lingering. Pamela held my hand, a steady anchor. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, but inside, I knew I needed time to process everything. The truth was bare, leaving me with mixed feelings, relief that I was finally seen, but pain that my trust in Chase had been shattered. I looked at Mom, Dad, and Chase, my family, and wondered if we could heal these cracks. In the months that followed, I returned to Austin, continuing my work with new resolve. I would care for my parents, but on my own terms, with clear boundaries. I opened a joint bank account with Mom, teaching her to check the balance through an app, though she still complained it was too complicated. I sent money directly, $2,500 each month, sometimes more when unexpected expenses arose. This time, everything was transparent. I sent Mom copies of receipts, called to confirm she received the money, and asked for her verification. "I don't want the past to repeat itself," I told her over the phone, my voice gentle but firm. Mom nodded through the video call, her eyes full of gratitude. "I understand, Alvin. I won't let it happen again." As they promised, Mom and Dad began to change. They stopped comparing me to Chase, no longer mentioning the clever younger brother or pride of the family. Instead, Mom called regularly, asking about my work in Austin, about my projects. "Being an engineer must be tough, right?" she asked, her voice genuinely curious. For the first time, I felt she was truly interested in my world. Dad, despite his failing health, started telling neighbors about Alvin, the engineer in the big city. Once he called me, his voice hoarse but warm. "I'm proud of you, Alvin." I was wrong not to see it sooner. Those simple, heartfelt words were a balm, healing the scars in my heart. Chase, after the incident, struggled to pick himself up. He admitted his grand projects were failed gambles. He owed money everywhere. "Alvin, I tried so hard to succeed, to make Mom and Dad proud," he said, full of regret, "but I went down the wrong path." I didn't know how to comfort him, but I advised him to find a stable job and start over. Chase nodded, and for the first time, I saw him take his promise seriously. He found work at an auto repair shop in Beckley, a modest salary, but enough to cover his expenses and contribute a small amount to our parents. Each month, he sent $300 home. Not much, but it was his first real effort to live responsibly. Mom told me Chase started spending more time at home, helping Dad fix the fence or taking her to the market. "He's trying, Alvin," she said softly. I know he was wrong, but I believe he'll change. I felt relieved, not just because of Chase's changes, but because I had finally stepped out from the shadow of comparison that had weighed on me for years. I no longer felt the need to compete with him or prove my worth. I was Alvin, a software engineer, a son, a man living true to his values. My work in Austin thrived. I was promoted to project team leader. Pamela was always by my side, supporting me through busy days and nights. She became an indispensable part of my life, not just a confidant, but a reminder that I deserved to be loved and respected. A year after that fateful birthday party, Pamela and I decided to get married. We chose a small church on the outskirts of Austin, with soft light streaming through stained glass windows. Pamela insisted on adding white daisies, reminiscent of Mom's garden, and an acoustic band playing gentle love songs. "This was our day, Alvin," she said, her eyes sparkling. "But it's also a day for your family to see how happy you are." Chase attended, dressed more simply, no longer sporting designer watches. He hugged me, saying, "Congratulations, Alvin. I'm trying to be a better person." I nodded, not bringing up the past, but in my heart, I hoped he would keep his word. The wedding was filled with joy, free from favoritism or comparisons. Relatives from Beckley, including Aunt Linda and Uncle Frank, spoke of me with genuine respect. "Alvin's truly a wonderful son," Aunt Linda said, her eyes no longer fixed on Chase. I smiled, feeling the fairness I had waited for my whole life. When Pamela walked in, wearing her white wedding dress, my heart seemed to stop. She looked like a dream. As she approached, taking my hand, I knew this wasn't just a new beginning for me, but for our family. As we exchanged vows, I looked into Pamela's eyes and said, "I promise to love and cherish you the way you helped me find myself again." Pamela smiled, her voice choked with emotion. "And I promise to always stand by you, Alvin, no matter what happens." We exchanged rings, and when I kissed her, applause erupted. I looked at my parents, Mom wiping tears, Dad smiling, and Chase in the corner giving a slight nod of support. My family, once divided by favoritism and lies, was slowly finding its way to love, fairness, and clarity. Years later, Pamela and I built a life full of joy. We bought a small house in Austin with a garden where Pamela planted daisies, just like Mom's. I continued my work, and Pamela started her own marketing consultancy. We often visited my parents, bringing small gifts. My parents now greeted us with smiles and stories, no longer centered on Chase. "As long as you're happy, I'm happy," Mom would say, her eyes free of any trace of favoritism. Chase, after years of struggle, finally found his path. He paid off his debts through a steady job and later opened a small auto garage in Beckley. His business did well, not the grand projects he once boasted about, but enough for him to take pride. He continued sending $300 a month to our parents, sometimes more. He began making up for past mistakes, not just with money, but with actions, fixing the roof, taking Dad to doctor's appointments, or simply sharing dinner. Once he called me, his voice sincere. "Alvin, I know I messed up, but I'm trying to be someone you can be proud of." I smiled over the phone. "Keep trying, Chase. I believe in you." And for the first time, I truly believed he could do it. Our lives as brothers, once divided by favoritism and lies, had found a balance. I no longer lived in Chase's shadow, and he no longer chased unrealistic expectations. Our family, though not perfect, had learned to love each other fairly and transparently. Looking back on my journey, from the quiet boy in Beckley to the happy man beside Pamela, I realized that family bonds are only truly strong when built on transparency and fairness. Love without fairness ceases to be a refuge and becomes a wound that's hard to heal. Only when each person is valued for who they are can a family endure as a place to return to, rather than a shadow that binds a life.